It appears that around 2 o'clock, shots were fired at the golf course, possibly coming from the tree line, while former President Trump was playing golf.
As you know, I'm English. I'm used to the BBC. I'm used to the BBC reporting on matters in a somewhat peculiar manner. Here, when they're reporting on an assassination attempt, look at how they very deliberately curate the information. To get us started, let's have a look at the legacy media, the BBC, state-funded, reporting on this assassination attempt.
Donald Trump says he's safe and well after reports of gunshots.
Firstly, nothing wrong with Donald Trump. Let's just lead with that. Donald Trump's fine. That's the end of the story. Can you imagine that if this was an assassination attempt on Kamala Harris, do you imagine the report would begin, Kamala Harris is fine, she's feeling better than ever, she was seen giggling? Or do you imagine that there might be an attempt to utilize the potential positive feeling and galvanization that could be derived from what looks like another assassination attempt?
Described to have been fired in his vicinity. Local officials in Palm Beach in Florida say it happened in the grounds of his golf course while he was playing. An AK-47 assault rifle has apparently been recovered and a man is in custody. Well, Tom Bateman is live in Washington with the very latest for us now. Tom, what more have you got?
Well, what is clear so far, Clive, is that this happened 3 hours ago as Donald Trump was playing golf. He was said to be between holes at his private course on West Palm Beach in Florida. Now, law enforcement officials say that multiple gunshots were heard at that moment.
Remember, up to the point where lawfare was deemed to be potentially successful, there were no assassination attempts. Once the lawfare route appeared to be exhausted, there are assassination attempts. Difficult to make absolute sense of this in the very early stages. But one thing we can say is that it appears to have gone from lawfare to, assassination attempt.
And the Secret Service detail that was protecting him at the time returned fire. There was a suspect that was seen and then seemed to flee, to run away from the scene. Now, law enforcement officials say they have recovered a weapon and a scope from the scene there, and they are at the moment around a wooded area on the edge of that golf course.
Fargo 2020 in the Awake and Wonder chat asks, what do you mean the lawfare route? The lawfare route, lawfare is a term that is used when the state deploys legal means to smear, attack, financially cripple or exhaust political opponents. It means that the judiciary has likely to some degree been corrupted and that the law itself, which is regarded as objective, can be weaponized. It's the weaponization of the law.
Now, separately, the local sheriff in West Palm County says that they closed the interstate highway after this, trying to find what they described as a suspect. They have stopped a car and detained a person that they say is of interest. That person now in the custody of the FBI, and the car itself is being searched. Now, what had been unclear until a few moments ago is whether or not Donald Trump was the intended target of this apparent shooting. Some US media were reporting unnamed law enforcement officials saying that he was the intended target, but that matter seems to have been cleared up in the last few minutes as the FBI have put out a very short statement saying that they are investigating this as an attempted assassination of Donald Trump. What that means is we have now witnessed what is potentially the second attempt on the former president's life during this election campaign. Remember, it was just over 2 months ago that a 20-year-old man tried to kill him at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. That led to the resignation of the director of the Secret Service over failures in that. Now, Donald Trump himself, his motorcade has been seen leaving the resort there and heading to Mar-a-Lago, which is just a few miles away, his resort in Florida. And Donald Trump himself has given a short statement in a campaign fundraising email. He has said there were gunshots in my vicinity, but before the rumors spiral out of control, I wanted you to hear this. I am safe and well. Nothing will slow me down. He says, I will never surrender.
It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it, to hear continual reports of assassination attempts, particularly when, like today, we were planning to talk about missile strikes deeper inside of Russia and the likelihood that that could lead to the apocalypse. We're planning to talk about how lobbying and donor interests are able, it seems, to maneuver from behind the scenes, the passing of bills, the declaring and funding of wars. But we're living in such an extraordinary time that, like, when I first saw assassination attempt on Donald Trump, I just thought, oh, maybe my feed is like firing up old videos. But no, sure enough, it's another assassination attempt. You know, I wonder how CNN are going to report on this. Donald Trump attempts to headbutt bullets. Donald Trump on golf course, potentially provoking another would-be assassin. Before we get into Ryan Ralph and his odd, extraordinary connections, let's have a look at CNN's reporting on this matter.
It appears that around 2 o'clock, shots were fired at the golf course, possibly coming from the tree line while former President Trump was playing golf. The Secret Service identified the direction, and the shooter returned fire at that gunman who fled. Witnesses were able to provide a description of an individual and a vehicle. We are told that a vehicle that is close to that description has been stopped by Palm Beach County police, possibly in Martin County, just over the line, and that they are holding that individual for the purposes of identification.
It looks like, in a way, CNN have now got a kind of a standardized response to assassination attempts. Let's have a look at how MSNBC are covering it. It seems that they are blaming Trump. Now, as we get closer and closer to this election, I'm starting to run out of potential plot lines that could take place. It comes to something when Alex Jones just seems like a perfectly reasonable predictor of events. Alex Jones, of course, said that it would be likely that there'd be another attempt on Trump's life. You'll be familiar with, like, both of the Weinsteins, Eric and Brett, saying that Trump won't be allowed to stand, that something will happen prior to the election. And events like this, I mean, how do you feel about it? This isn't about whether or not you like Trump. This is about whether or not, I suppose, you feel that Trump is a disruption to the intended trajectory of globalists, in particular with their intentions towards increasing and expanding war between Ukraine and Russia, across the Middle East, and maybe eventually with China. We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. The war against free speech is in full swing. We are the vanguard, bravely fighting back. Rumble's the home of this channel, Stay Free, and a leader in defending the fundamental human right of free speech. They've joined X to sue a cartel of advertisers and ad agencies who conspired to block ad revenue from going to the platforms. Recently, they've launched Rumble Premium. This, I think, is going to be a game changer for all of us. It's an ad-free viewing experience with great perks for viewers and creators. Rumble Premium will give you the ability to dive into your favorite content on your mobile or desktop or smart TV and savor every uninterrupted second of my content. Why don't you upgrade to Rumble Premium today? Support my free speech and the free speech of other content creators on this platform. Please go to Rumble now, rumble.com/premium. And if you use the code BRAND, you'll save $10 and Rumble will be aware that our stream is creating great converts. So that's rumble.com/premium and do use the code BRAND to save $10. Anyway, there's a link there at the bottom of the screen now. We're posting it in the chat. Join up. Let's have a look at how MSNBC declare that this assassination attempt, this latest, most recent assassination attempt, was potentially caused by Trump's own rhetoric. Let's look.
Yeah. Do you expect there to be calls from within the Trump campaign to do that? Because he's going to reach out to his supporters and say, let's take this down. We do not know, again, the source of any gunshot or gunshots. We don't know who's responsible for this. The whole thing has yet to be 100% confirmed from start to finish how this all played out. But do you expect to hear anything from the Trump campaign about toning down the rhetoric, toning down the violence, or would that be atypical of the former president?
How you can point the finger at the Trump campaign, who have used various types of extraordinary rhetoric in a variety of ways, I suppose, over time, that seems less relevant than the fact that it's Trump that's being shot at. It's fascinating to hear the media, particularly in the form of MSNBC, that have normalised attacks and demonisation of Donald Trump. Remember, a little while ago, we looked at Donald Trump's appearance on The View, and it's just like, hey, here's businessman and playboy Donald Trump spending a little time with Joy Reid and Whoopi Goldberg. Like it was no big deal. When you are able to calibrate this election campaign with events across the world, in particular the increase of hostility in various conflicts and various regions, you begin to think that it's unlikely that the reason that the establishment and the legacy media loathe Donald Trump is because he's said some crazy, inappropriate stuff, or he might be a bit of an old school 80s kind of entrepreneur tycoon character. It's more likely, I think, based on what I learned during the pandemic period, based on what I've learned during personal experiences, that in some way or another, he is a disruption of their intended agenda. I think that's a lot more likely than we just hate this Donald Trump guy because, you know, he's racist or whatever.
Well, Alex, remember back to the assassination attempt on President Trump's life and how, you know, there was talk of a new tone, and then the Republican convention was, by Trumpian standards, muted. And it did seem like he was, you know, just trying to take it down a few notches. But then
I can't even properly, as a mental exercise, imagine how this would be reported on if it was Kamala Harris. I can't, like, if Kamala Harris had had 2 assassination attempts on her life in the last couple of months, I don't know how that would be reported. Yes, I do, actually. I'm beginning to see it now. It'd be like this. Do you see? This is what we are dealing with. When we talk about hate, when we talk about danger, when we talk about the need to stop this hateful movement, when we tell you every day that he's going to make himself dictator on day one and there's going to be a bloodbath, both of which, if you look at them in context, are clearly sort of glib little asides and jokes. You have to. Your only choice is to vote for the Democratic Party. You have to allow us to imprison Donald Trump. You have to allow us to ban the MAGA movement. You have to allow us to take Bobby Kennedy, chain him up and ride him around on the top of the car like he's one of his own hunting trophies. If this was reversed, I'm beginning to see it would be utilised in order to justify further authority and legislation.
By the end of his convention speech, you know, we were kind of back to where we started. So I don't know how long this could, you know, this moment of unity for the country where we come together and we say, I don't want any political opposition to be under threat of violence. It's not okay, any threat of violence, you know, we don't want. I would love for us to have a unity type moment, but I think it's probably going to be pretty fleeting, as we've seen in the past.
This story is only all the more extraordinary when you look into the peculiar history of Ryan Routh. They have not been able to scrub the internet fast enough, and some extraordinary details remain. A lot of people are talking about moles within the Secret Service. A lot of people are talking about his odd affiliations and connection to Ukraine. He's been there. It seems that he's tried to recruit foreign fighters. We'll be getting into that in our next piece of content. What do I think's happening? I'm at a loss to try to understand the pace and extraordinariness of events. I'm beginning to think that the whole matrix is glitching and that our only possible way out of this madness is some sort of immediate, spontaneous spiritual enlightenment. But that's not even what I think. That's just what I pray for. Let me know what you think and pray for in the comments and the chat. Wherever you're watching us, remember to like and subscribe. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.